The desert doesn't whisper, it warns. That evening, Jacob Henley, a weary Arizona rancher, felt danger before he saw it. A trembling young woman appeared on his land, her dress torn, her satchel clutched like it carried her very soul. Behind her, riders closed in, their dust clouds growing thicker by the second. Jacob's voice cut through the wind like steel. Get inside, before it's too late. What he didn't know yet, her arrival would drag him into a conspiracy darker than any outlaw raid. If you're already hooked, you'll want to ride this story all the way to the end. It's a tale of courage, betrayal, and a fight for justice in the Wild West you won't forget. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe for more true grit stories like this, and share it with someone who loves the old frontier as much as you do. Now let's step into Jacob's world. The Arizona desert was no place for wanderers after dark. Jacob Henley knew that better than most. 30 years of ranching had taught him how the land could swallow a man whole, by thirst, by storm, or by the barrel of a gun. So when he spotted her staggering up his dirt path, clutching a leather satchel to her chest, he felt trouble before a word was spoken. Her dress was sun-bleached and torn, a streak of blood staining her shoulder. She looked no older than 20, but her eyes, haunted, watchful, belonged to someone who had seen too much. Get inside, before it's too late, Jacob ordered, his voice steady, but edged with urgency. The riders behind her were closing in, their dust clouds boiling on the horizon. He didn't need to count their numbers to know danger when it came calling. The young woman froze, trembling, torn between trusting a stranger or facing the men hunting her. I don't know you, she whispered, backing toward the steps. Jacob's weathered hands tightened around his rifle. He wasn't offering comfort. He was offering survival. And in that moment, she had to choose between fear of him or fear of what was coming. Inside Jacob's cabin, the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm she carried in her satchel. She hadn't given her name yet, just sat hunched in a wooden chair, clutching the bag like armor. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked under the weight of memory. They killed my father. They killed everyone in Broken Creek. Jacob froze. Broken Creek lay 2 days' ride south. If it had truly been wiped off the map, this wasn't the work of common outlaws. These were men sent to erase entire towns. The satchel spilled its truth across Jacob's table. Letters, contracts, stamped seals. A railroad company's scheme laid bare. They had wanted Broken Creek's land for the new line. When the town council refused, gunmen did the rest. 43 souls silenced, their deaths to be blamed on Apache raids or fever. Jacob felt his stomach turn. Rumors of such things had drifted across the territory, but here was proof. Cold, signed, and deliberate. The woman's eyes hardened through her tears. If I can get these to a newspaperman in Denver, the world will know. 8 days' ride through hostile country, against hired killers, against the railroad itself. The night pressed heavy on Jacob's ranch, the kind of silence that made every creak of wood and whisper of wind sound like a warning. Through the window, faint torchlight flickered on the horizon. The riders had stopped making camp. They weren't rushing in. No, they were patient. Like wolves circling, waiting for daylight to finish the kill. Sarah, that was the name she finally gave him, paced the cabin floor, clutching her father's papers. Jacob watched her but said nothing. He'd seen fear before, but this was different. It wasn't just fear of dying. It was fear of failing, fear of letting the truth vanish into desert dust. At dawn, the first shot cracked the cabin window. Glass rained across the floor. Then came the voice, smooth and venomous. Send out the lady in the bag, rancher, and maybe we let you live. 7 men surrounded them, rifles glinting in the rising sun. Their leader sat tall in the saddle, a black duster flowing around him. Sarah's breath caught. That's Wade Brennan, she whispered, the railroad's hired gun, the man who ordered Broken Creek burned. Jacob loaded his Winchester, 30 rounds, maybe 40. Against 7 killers, it wasn't enough. But giving her up was never an option. The cabin erupted in gunfire. Bullets tore through the walls, shredding wood and splintering Jacob's family Bible where it sat on the shelf. Sarah crouched low, gripping Jacob's old Colt with surprising steadiness. "My father taught me to shoot," she muttered, snapping the cylinder shut. They answered volley with volley, the little cabin turning into a furnace of lead and smoke. But for every bullet Jacob fired, Brennan's men answered with 10. The odds bled them dry. Then Sarah spotted something. Through a hole in the wall, sunlight caught on the silver conchos of Brennan's duster. Her eyes widened. "That's my father's mark, the tiny cross. He made those." Jacob blinked, realization hitting like a hammer. Sarah's father, the silversmith, had unknowingly blessed the very man who destroyed his town. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. The barn went up in flames, cutting off their escape. Brennan's laughter echoed. No place left to run. Come out or burn like the rest of Broken Creek. Jacob looked at Sarah, determination burning in both their eyes. They were down to their last few rounds. The cabin was crumbling. But surrender? That was never in their blood. The world narrowed to smoke, fire, and the whistle of bullets. Jacob knew they couldn't hold out, so when hoofbeats thundered from the east, he dared to hope. 3 territorial marshals crested the ridge, badges glinting in the sun. But hope died fast. Brennan barked the order, and his men cut them down in seconds. Justice, it seemed, had no place in this land. Yet that chaos gave Jacob a sliver of time. He burst from the cabin, Winchester blazing, drawing the outlaws' fire. "Run!" he shouted. Sarah clutched the satchel and dove for the hidden tunnel. Brennan spotted her and fired, his bullet grazing her shoulder. She staggered, but somehow stayed upright, firing back with her Colt before disappearing underground. Moments later, she emerged by the creek, seizing a marshal's horse. Bloodied but unbroken, Sarah Manifest rode north with the truth strapped to her saddle. Jacob spent his last bullets covering her escape, before surrendering to Brennan's men with nothing but defiance in his eyes. His sacrifice bought her 8 days, just enough to reach Denver. Months later, Sarah's testimony toppled governors, shattered the railroad's grip, and gave voice to 43 silenced souls. Stories like this remind us that justice often rides wounded, but it rides nonetheless. If you felt Sarah and Jacob's struggle, hit that like button. It helps more folks discover tales from the untamed West. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you never miss the next ride into history. And share this with someone who loves stories that linger long after the dust settles.